After months of blood, sweat, and tears, the website is finally available. The premium anime database. We also have reviews, recommendations, and of course, the podcast. If you're interested and you would like to check out a database full of retro anime, good gosh, hold on. Ah.
You want
I'm not used to
start over?
Welcome to the IMP, the Ichi podcast. My name is NW Epic, and I'm joined by my co-host Nam Mana. And today we're going to talk about the Switch duology of Zelda titles, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. But I want to really quickly plug the website ichiniche.com. It is finally live. The premium anime database. We also have reviews, recommendations, and of course, the podcast lives on the site as well. If you have a second and are interested in retro anime, please check out the website, ichiniche.com. Good sir, how are you?
Even though I woke up like 3 hours ago, I'm still pretty tired.
You're just perpetually tired, just perpetually not sleeping
That's
like a normal human.
Perpetually tired for like the past 8 years or so.
One day we'll get you sleep, my man. But regardless of your sleep, you have been at the very least excited. When did Tears of the Kingdom come out? I feel like it's been a month at this point.
May 12th, I want to say. It was a Friday for sure.
Gotcha. So I mean, it's been a month. When did Breath of the Wild come out? Was that 2016? Is that when the Switch released?
Was it 16 or 15? It definitely was a launch title, of course, but
yeah, I feel like it was 16, but Google might tell me differently.
March 3rd, 2017.
Wow. 2017? 2016? Interesting. Well,
I think regardless, it was planned for like September or late 2016, then they delayed it.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Well, I mean, it's been quick math. 6 years? 6 years since Breath of the Wild, and we've finally got the sequel. And from what I'm seeing, from what I've heard from you, it is the sequel that everybody has been dreaming of. It is a great continuation of what Breath of the Wild built. And so I think we're gonna unpack that today. We're gonna unpack your feelings, sort of the general consensus. But the interesting thing with today, something of note, I've never played Breath of the Wild until, I forgot when I started. That was probably a week ago. And so I'm gonna give my general thoughts on Breath of the Wild. What I feel about it, sort of, have I enjoyed it? Is it what everybody says it's been? And excuse my voice is trying to go out for whatever reason, but we're gonna power through this. Yeah, just give my general thoughts on Breath of the Wild and how I felt about it, and then we're going to compare notes to your experience with Tears of the Kingdom. Now, I will say I have not finished Breath of the Wild. You have finished both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and this is for any listeners. Spoilers abound. We're just going to go full unload. I probably will not play Tears of the Kingdom for another 5 years or so, just like with Breath of the Wild, so I don't really care. But for any listeners, if you don't want any spoilers for either game, really, this may not be the podcast for you. So with that being said, I think the best format for this is sort of like a question and answer style between the both of us. So we'll start with me. You sort of ask me some questions about my experience with Breath of the Wild, and then I'll just answer those. And also, the freedom to sort of just talk about whatever you want to off of those questions. We don't have to stick just, so rigidly to that, but I think it'll be good to initiate some of the discussions that we want to have with the games. Before that, though, really quick, I just want your summary sort of for both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So just give me a quick, personal feeling that you have for both of those games, like how you felt they were, what type of game. How do I put this? Give me sort of your opinion on the titles, both of them.
I think Breath of the Wild, when I first played it, it was one of the very limited number of games, maybe count on one hand number of games that you really appreciate the level of detail and all the care that went into making this game. Like every little corner, looking cranny, all the NPCs, dialogue, little details in the game engine that they really thought of almost everything. Same goes with Tears of the Kingdom. But I guess my first question would be, have you played any other games that are similar open world RPG?
That's a good question. Yes, but so here's my history with open world games, right? And that's actually a good opening statement. I like the concept of open world games, but they give me, I wouldn't necessarily say anxiety, but they give me sort of, there's too much to do and there's so much freedom that I kind of just get a little feeling about the game and I can't really progress because I'm the type of person that when I play a game, I'm sort of obsessively like getting to the details. So for instance, like I recently started Shin Megami Tensei 4, and I grinded and grinded and grinded, and the game is linear. So I mean, it does have sort of an openness to it and progression, but not really. But otherwise, it's just your typical sort of dungeon crawler RPG, JRPG. And so that facilitates me with open world games. So I think probably the first open world game I ever played was Fallout New Vegas, maybe that or Fallout 3. And neither of those I really stuck with long. I really liked watching other people play, but I didn't enjoy it playing it myself necessarily. And really, I wouldn't return to that sort of style of game until Arceus Legends, or Legends Arceus, excuse me. And I don't know if I necessarily classify that as open world. The thing with Legends is that it has giant biomes, but that's what they are. You sort of fast travel to the biomes, and they're large, but they're contained enough to not be overwhelming. And I really enjoyed that aspect of the game, and so I was able to immerse myself more into that. And so to pivot back into Breath of the Wild really quick, when I initially started, I got that overwhelming sensation that I normally feel with open world games, where it's like, oh my gosh, there's a lot to this. There's a lot of meat. But interestingly enough, just giving it more time and playing with it more, I didn't mind as much anymore. It didn't seem as big as it initially seemed. Like, it's still huge and expansive and there's a lot going on, but it didn't feel as large or overwhelming as I thought. And I feel like there's a lot of reasons for that, but I'll touch on those reasons in other questions. So yeah, that's a long-winded way to say kind of, sort of, but not really.
Well, I guess another answer would be there's not quite any other game like it.
Yes, absolutely. I've really gotten that since after playing it for this week or so. Like it is very unique, very unique.
Okay. Second question. What was the first Divine Beast or town you went to?
Okay. So first town or first Divine Beast?
First of the big four towns.
Gotcha.
Domains.
Okay. So I'm bad with names. I didn't come prepared with names. So it's Yaruta, I believe that's how you say it. That's the Zora Domain's Divine Beast. That is the first one that I encountered. Varuta, yeah. Is it as Varuta? Okay, Varuta, yeah. And I haven't completed that one yet. I'm actually in the Divine Beast, which I thought was pretty interesting because I'm used to Zelda, but like you said earlier, the game is so unique, right? So it sort of feels like its own thing. And so I mean, it's Zelda, right? But I've detached it from titles before it. And so when I got to Varuta and I realized it was just a typical Zelda dungeon, I was like, oh, we're playing Zelda, right? Because the game's just so different than what has come before it. Like, I had already disassociated that there hadn't really been any dungeons in the game, so that was pretty cool. And I really like sort of the way the world just organically moves you into like the little sub stories with each domain. Of course, I haven't experienced the other three, but at least with the Zora domain one, like I'm just randomly traveling, right? Like I haven't even completed sort of the main sort of tutorial section yet, but I'm just, doing my thing. And then I just so happen to come into a location where one of the Zoras like, hey, you're a Hylian, right? Like our Prince Sidon, or however you say it, he needs a Hylian. Can you come over? Blah blah blah. And then it's like, sure, I guess. And then you make your way over, and then you get the the full thing, meeting Sidon, and then he basically travels with you on the path as you take the human route to the Zora domain, and then you start to unravel the backstory of one of the four guardians. They are called guardians, right? I'm not misnaming them. Or are they heroes? What are they?
The champions.
Champions, yes. every name but the actual name, yes. The four champions. And you learn a little bit more about Mipha, but it's not even just Mipha. You learn a lot about sort of the attachment that the people had to her. You're starting to unravel those mysteries that you don't necessarily know, because obviously you're playing this game after they've lost the war against Calamity Ganon. So yeah, that's the first one I made it to. It's pretty neat, and I really like how unique the Zora's domain looks, especially in comparison to a lot of the early towns like Hateno and Kakariko,
Yep.
I think. Yeah, just everything looks unique. And we'll probably touch on this with another question, but on top of that, and it's something that you sort of told me before we even, before I even played, like all of the NPCs have their own like character, their unique models, their own stories. Like an issue that I have with like JRPGs in particular, right, is like NPCs are utilized to flesh out the story or to flesh out the environments, excuse me. But oftentimes they can be like reused models and just with generic names like Jerome and Tyler and at least I don't know, just all these generic names, and you don't really grow attached. But like all of these characters like have their own little stories. Like I go into Zora's Domain and like there are some of the kids that they were small children when Link was still around 100 years ago, and now they're like adults, and they're like, oh my gosh, Link, or one even calls him like Lenny. And then you have like some of the older guard, right, who are like, you dirty Hylian, like, oh my gosh, and they're just upset because they're like, you took Mifa from us, and obviously you unpack that as like she was in love with Link, and those were other potential candidates, like and obviously she was their princess, so there was a level of admiration and desire there. But sorry, I know I'm going with these long-winded things, but like there's a lot to unpack with these. But yes, that is the first domain. That fight with the divine beast in particular, well, I guess it's not really a fight, but it's when you ride on the back of Sidon and you have to shoot the 4 little things with the electric arrows, the little orbs on the divine beast. I was like, oh my gosh, this is neat. Like this is cool. This is a really awesome set piece. It got me really excited to see what they do with the other 3 divine beasts. Even the lead up before you even get to that point, which is like, oh well, you need shock arrows. By the way, we're gonna kind of force you into this encounter with the Lionel. I hope you're ready. Which you don't have to defeat the Lionel, but I'm a very stubborn gamer, so I decided that I was going to fight the Lionel and kill it. Bear in mind that I've not bought any equipment. I'm kind of just, using what I find. And I'm only upgrading my stamina at this point because I feel it's more important than my heart. So I'm still at like 3 heart containers. I haven't really delved into the alchemy or cooking and stuff, so I don't really have a lot of elixirs or food to sort of, offset maybe the fact that I don't have much. So here I am spending hours trying to perfect this Lionel, and maybe at another point we'll touch on combat, but combat is amazing. And they gave me a parry, man. I feel so powerful in this game. You don't understand. They gave me a parry. So when I tell you I brought it to this Lionel, the only reason the Lionel took me so long to beat, because I really had him down. His attacks are so telegraphed, like he's just clockwork. But if I just mess up once, I just die. And that's pretty much, what happens with that. I didn't have any fairies or anything like that, so it took me a second, but it was a clean fight. Anyways, yes, Varuda and the Zora Domain was my first one, and a lot of stories with that as well.
That's pretty interesting that you went to, well, I guess it would be the opposite, but I believe a vast majority of players did start off with Zora's Domain, since I know when you last speak with the king, or the old man, he tells you to go east towards Kakariko, and then on that way you meet that one Zora that's just swimming around in the marsh, like you mentioned. So because I did the same thing.
So would you say Zora is the one that you meet a lot of people happen to go to first, or do they go to like, okay,
like Nintendo doesn't force you to go there, but they put a lot of things on the way that nudge you to go that way.
And see, that's the thing. Like, I feel like with a lot of my journeys so far in the game, like, I've kind of gotten off the beaten path. I actually thought, like, oh, shoot, obviously, there's a sort of path that they push you to go, but I accidentally just stumbled upon it and then decided, okay, I'll go for it. Why not? So that's interesting. I sort of ended up that way anyways. But man, I went all sorts of non-ways off the beaten path and stuff. Like, my trip to Hatano was stressful, and I think I told you about that in Discord. But like, after I realized like there was just this clear path that was obviously specified to my, obviously I'm just starting the game level with enemies that are scaled properly to that. Like, I was pissed. I was like, you're telling me I went through this hard way, like just struggling, like encountering that Lionel for the first time? Because I imagine Zora's Domain is probably where people meet their first Lionel, or I forget what the mountain is called that you have to go to get the shock arrows. But I was just like, are you kidding me? So I started to pay a little bit more attention about where I was going. But I think that's the fun part too. The game gives you all the tools that you need to sort of like do what you want. Like, you can follow the path that is sort of given to you, or you can explore, and if you're good, survive. So that's pretty cool.
Okay, next question. How did you fight fight Divine Beast Ruta.
I haven't done that yet. I only did the first section. So
yeah, the first section when you ride on his back.
Oh, so you said how did I fight him?
Yeah.
I mean, he was pretty easy, like especially after squaring up with the Lionel, and also something I haven't talked about yet, which was pretty much fighting and killing the what are those things called? The Guardians, I believe. Like they have two different forms, the walking forms, and then the ones that are like corrupted or something like that. But yeah, the with that in that first fight, I mean, it was pretty much a cakewalk. Once I figured out that with the square ice blocks that you sort of just had to aim to the right a little bit, because the trajectory of how the ice was moving towards you, plus the way that you're moving, hit it. That made the fight pretty easy. And then
so you're saying you shot them?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because like that path that you take to sort of get to Zora's domain, like at some point I was like at a huge deficit of arrows, but then now I by the time that I got to Zora's domain, I had like 200 like just regular arrows. So I mean, I was good to go. But yeah, no. I actually have footage of it, so I'll probably put that in the podcast. But yeah, I just shot the ice blocks. Do people do that another way where they don't shoot the ice blocks? Or
well, since you already passed this part of the fight, you can use Cryonis and break those blocks yourself with the Sheikah Slate.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I just I kind of just went with what he said. He was like, shoot those down. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna shoot him with the arrow. So yeah, there was only one block at the very end that was kind of pesky, but other than that, yeah, I just shot it with the ice blocks. I didn't even think to use my runes. That's crazy. So that just trivializes that fight, I imagine.
I mean, it's only if you like connected those things, like, oh, this looks like a Cryonis block. What happens if I use my Cryonis block?
But I mean, now that you mention it, it looks like I can see it. I'm like, wow, why didn't I think about that? And obviously, it's based on the same technology. So obviously it would be generating, that's neat. That also makes me think that, obviously for some of maybe the future Divine Beasts that I will go to, like there will be a similar maybe gimmick that I can utilize my runes for. Or maybe it's the actual use case that they want you to do it for, but that's neat. Again, game has layers, man. Who said this is like an onion? Like there's layers. That's crazy. But that was a pretty fun, I guess, mini boss fight. And I'm curious to see what you actually encounter within. I assume it'll be sort of your standard Zelda sort of sub boss, but maybe not. I don't know yet. All right, well,
I forgot.
What other questions you could?
Yeah, kind of forgot. Oh, you found out what the Korok seeds do.
Yes. So the Korok seeds. Yeah. And that's what I was talking about earlier. Went off the beaten path. Like I didn't take the easy path to Hateno. So I completely missed them at first. Yeah, I gotta complain about the Korok seeds. Like I think I have glowing praise for pretty much everything in this game but Korok seeds. Part of it's a personal bias, and then the other part of it is like an actual criticism, I feel, at least in my opinion. So I don't really care for collectathon games. So think like your Donkey Kong 64s, your Banjo-Kazooies, anything Rare. Well, not anything Rare made, but the genre popularized by Rare in the 90s. And my issue with the Korok seeds is not necessarily that. Like, I don't like that aspect, but it's fine. I get it. But I feel like such an important thing that's tied to, like, your equipment upgrades, like, or getting more slots for your equipment. Like, it's really, like, a grind to, like, have to find these things. Like, some of these are really obvious. Like, the first one that you encounter, the first Korok seed that I guess most players probably encounter before they get to, I think the giant Korok's name is Hetsu, I think.
Hetsu.
Hetsu.
Hetsu. What? Hetsu.
What? Hetsu.
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 Hetsu. Hestu. Hestu.
I'm just gonna call him Giant Korok. The giant Korok with the maracas. Where's my point? Where was I going with this? What was I say? Shoot, I forgot. Damn you, giant maraca Korok. Yes, the Korok seeds, they that first one that you find is like simple. Like you see this like little pattern on the wall, and you can tell like that the block is out of place. So okay, I'm gonna use my magnetism thing and put the block in the correct way, and then Korok seed, right? But some of these are like under random rocks. Like some of these are like I feel like I found one in a random tree. Like, and they were spread out. Now, actually, before we got hopped on the podcast, I was finding them in more succession because I was exploring a little bit more off the beaten path. And I mean, some of them are like little fun things. Like there's this little fan, and then you got like the 3 balloons, and then you had to pop the 3 balloons with arrows. There was one where you go up a dead tree trunk. Like obviously, you know, I believe there's like 900 of these, so you could have a million different stories of how you found them. But I don't know, man. I'm just like, some of the obscurity of these, again, to such a central thing that is sort of needed. Like, I guess you don't necessarily need all those slots, but it makes your life so much easier. And I just don't want to have to grind off the beaten path so much to find these Korok seeds, which it starts to get pricey because, like, with each successive upgrade of the individual parts, right? So like, you know, I think he does separate for your weapons, your shields, and your bows. And so each time you do that, he increases the amount of Korok seeds that you need. And I was getting these seeds at like a myopic rate. Like I was not getting a lot of seeds. And so when I got like, I don't know, I was upgrading my weapons because I was like, okay, if I need to prioritize one, I'm going to prioritize my weapons. But like got up to 4. I think I looked up a list, and like at a certain point, like it's like 10 that you have to do, and it sort of locks in at 10 for a little bit until I guess you unlock all of the slots that he can do. I'm just like, why? Like, why? And so I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan. I guess I do prefer it to a degree over like the golden scarabs that were in the Ocarina of Time and I believe Twilight Princess. But I don't know. But no, I don't though, because I feel like there should be another way to unlock that equipment. Because with the golden scarabs in those previous games, like at most you collected a certain amount, you got rupees, you know, maybe a type of bomb, and then at the end of it, if you got so many, you would get a heart container. Like that was always like the location to put like one of the few heart containers, right? But I want my equipment, man. I feel like I go through my equipment so quickly. Kinda go through it so quickly. Or I would, there's just a lot that I would like to hold. And I don't have the space for it. And so now I have to do all this grinding for these Korok seeds, which I might lose that equipment that I want to hold on to along the way. Anyway, sorry, you're about to say something?
No, that just reminds me of my next question. How do you feel about breakable weapons?
I think so it's a twofold answer. I really like, so let me start without that question. I like the realism. Obviously this is a fantasy Zelda world, so I know, but I like the realism that the game takes in a lot of its approaches to how things are handled. Like certain things just make sense. For instance, I hold an apple in my hand and I approach my horse and the horse just eats the apple. There's not really a tutorial for this, but it's just a thing that happens. There's just realism there, right? And so to a degree, I sort of like the system with the weapons. The other end of that is I think it forces you to experiment with a lot of different weapon types, and it also sort of makes the adventure more fun and unique. No one person's, you know, journey is going to be the same outside of maybe like a speedrunner. And even then there's variants there that could potentially happen. Like, you know, I could stumble upon this mob goblin who has this broadsword, and then, you know, I take his broadsword, and that broadsword takes me to this next town where I eventually get this other weapon, blah, blah, blah. You know, you get the point I'm saying. It can be annoying, especially early on, but I feel like the weapons start to get a little more cooler and more durable as you journey into the game, and it doesn't become as much of an issue. I think the main thing is if you have a preferred weapon that you like, and especially one that maybe is hard to get for interest, for specifically like, I haven't really used it yet, but I stumbled upon this random shrine, right? And it was definitely outside of my level skill. Like I shouldn't have been there, but I got this, I think it's called Edge of Duality or something like that. It's like sword. It's like my most powerful sword is like got like 50 points. I don't know how, you know, outside of the Master Sword, what's the best swords or whatever. But I've been holding on to this, you know, and I'm kind of scared to use it because I'm like, well, this thing's gonna just break on me. And I don't know how rare this is or how, you know, unique this is. And so there's that fear factor that I don't feel as comfortable to use my best weapons because, you know, they could break pretty easily or I could lose them, yada, yada, yada. But on that side effect, on that note too, like, it gives me more incentive to, I guess, battle more, which I enjoy. The mechanics of combat. Finding random goblins, or maybe finding a random stash or something like that, or even the random weapons that I find in shrines. Like, found a thunder sword in a shrine. I found like this cool broadsword, Zora broadsword. Like, I don't know. It's a mixed bag. I assume there's a location at some point, probably in like Goron Village or something, or Goron's Domain, whatever it's called, where you can probably have like a blacksmith, like keep the durability of your weapons or return it, or repair stuff.
You're close. Not
close.
Not quite.
I'm sure there's a blacksmith somewhere. I feel like the Gorons would be the ones to have that, but if it's not them, I know there was a blacksmith in Zora's Domain, but he was talking about some specific gear, so I'm not sure what that's related to. But I like it and I don't like it. Again, it encourages diversity in combat, and it makes things interesting, and it makes my story interesting, because now I always have a new story. There's gonna be that story where I was popping off and I was just, destroying whatever, right? And then I'm using the last little bit of durability in this weapon, and you get that last little critical hit, and you just send them flying, and it's like, And I mean, shields are pretty cool too. Again, I like the fact that parries don't hinder the durability. So if you're particularly nasty with your parries, like, you're just using the shield, like, I had fun pretty much just parrying the laser beams from the Guardians with the pot lid to just kill them, right? Like, it's just fun. Like, I don't know. I don't know if that really answers the question. I think it encourages a lot. It can be annoying, but I think that's just the appeal of the game. Like, it fits perfectly within how the game wants you to play. I think both.
The Nintended way.
The Nintended way, yes. I do think bows should be a little exempt from it, but that's just a personal thing. I guess it doesn't really matter. It's the same thing. But
I guess, speaking of weapons, did you notice how the chemistry system or chemistry engine of the game works when you equip certain things, or wear certain items, or use effects on different objects?
Gotcha. So I think you just enlightened me to something that I didn't discover, but I sort of figured was probably a thing. So no, I have not. I've just been using equipment as I find it. Again, I haven't bought anything, and I really have just been going as I go and just using the equipment that I found, and haven't really worked with the alchemy system in the game. But if I'm understanding what you're saying, for like instance, what are those bats called? The like
keys?
Keys, yeah. Like, if I were to take a Keys's eye and combine it with like maybe an arrow or a bow, like, that gives you like extended vision or something like that, or maybe precise, something like that, maybe. Is that more so what you're getting at? Like, you can actually combine weapons with maybe some of the elixir style ingredients in order to enhance them in various ways?
Not in that game.
That's a Tears of the Kingdom thing.
Maybe.
I mean, this is spoiler cast, so you don't have to withhold that for me. But I'll assume that's.
I guess that's since you said it, I'll give you this one minor cool thing about Tears of the Kingdom. Yes, you can fuse eyeballs to arrows, and they will track your target. Or that's awesome. They're homing on your target. That's
awesome. Let me tell you why I figured that out. I mean, I went looking for something because, again, I was fighting that Lionel, and I wanted to see if you could stun lock the Lionel in the head. So like, if I consistently hit it in the head with the arrow, like, could I do that repetitively, or was there a cooldown? And I saw somebody mention like the Keith's eyeball in the bow, and I was like, how does that work? And I didn't know. I didn't look at it too much further, but okay, that makes sense. So what are you referring to with like alchemy and stuff with your weapons and such? Because I do know like there have been some random weapons that I found. For instance, like there was a guardian sword that had increased critical hit status, and I found a few shields or bows that had increased strength or durability or defense and stuff like that. Is that what you're referring to, or are you referring to something else?
Not really. I'm more speaking like the game engine, or the physics engine. But
engine.
Well, that's why I don't want to call it physics engine, because it's not dealing with the movement of objects. So that's why I say chemistry engine, where objects have different properties that interact with each other in the world that weren't specifically programmed to work with, like, specifically in one way, or specific objects. Say, have you climbed a snowy mountain where you needed like warm
I have
clothes?
Not yet.
No. Or any cold area?
I mean, I've been to the cold area once. I guess that initial tutorial section, I climbed that. I didn't really climb though. I just walked through it.
Did you have to make any warm, like spicy pepper stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you ever use a torch of any kind?
Yes, I have used the torch.
And you would notice that the torch helps you keep warm.
I did not notice that.
You did not?
I did not. Because I didn't use the torch, and the only times I've used the torch is actually just to make a makeshift fire to like make quick food or to light up the little I guess cooking stations with fire. Okay. Or that one quest in Hatano, but that's interesting. I haven't really been in a cold location. There was that one instance, like I told you, where I found the Lionel that way when I was heading towards Hatano, but I didn't have a torch, I didn't have fire. I kind of just I guess I'm lying. Then I did climb up there, but I didn't notice anything weird, if that makes sense.
Okay. Huh.
I may be playing the game wrong. Or I may be playing it the Nintended way. The Nintended way.
So I don't know about if that's like something they would prioritize or something, because it's not like a major part of enjoying the game. It's just something that this also works. Or
so give me an example.
Like the snowy mountain or walking in a cold area. Say you don't have any warm food or warm gear to wear, you can wear something or equip something that is warm and it should help.
Gotcha. So are you more so referring to like maybe the way that they design things, like there's a level of realism or a level of like, we're not necessarily teaching you this, but it still works maybe the way you think it would. So for instance, like you're giving the example of being in like a cold location. Like if I have a torch with me, that'll help retain, heat rather than, just walking there by itself. Is that what you're more so getting at? Gotcha. Yes. Okay, yes, I have.
Yeah, the world engine does kind of work as you expect it, even if you're not told how it works.
Yeah. There was a few instances of that, and I actually came to talk about those, but because I think again that was a big part of the immersiveness, like just little small things. I gave the example earlier of like I could feed the apple to the horse, right? Like my brain was like, I wonder if I can feed this horse. I would like to feed my horse, and I took an apple out, and then it comes and eats the apple out of my hand, or I was cutting down a tree randomly and like apples fell from the tree, and then my horse, obviously most of the time they just stay stationary, but it goes and sees the apple and then it eats the apple off of the ground. And I mean just general thing, or even just like when the weather changes, right? The NPCs will like sort of like real humans like try to go find somewhere to stay dry, or like enemies do that as well, animals, that sort of thing. And even with the NPCs, like they may have unique dialogue that goes with the fact the weather has changed. Like the painter in Kakariko Village, I believe I was doing his little sub quest to get a picture of the fairy fountain, and it started raining, and I spoke to him after the fact, and he was like, I thought you needed something in this terrible weather. Like, yes, I have had those experiences. There was one in particular that was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, like you can just do this, and I can't remember what it was. I really can't remember what it was, but yes, I've experienced it in a few different ways, and I find that really cool. Again, it adds to that experience. Like you're always discovering something new. It feels like there's always something new. Like there's just a level of detail that you don't really get out of a lot of games, and things work. Like it's not buggy, like it's not tripping out or anything. Like things just work. It's really cool.
I know you mentioned you found like elemental weapons.
Yes.
What kind of elemental weapons have you found?
The only one, so I do know that there's the little, I forget what those creatures are called, but they're like the little wizards, and if you defeat them, they drop like the fire rod or the thunder rod or the ice rod or whatever they're called. The only like bladed weapon that I found is the thunder sword, and again I found that in a shrine, and I forgot where I found the other one, and that one's pretty cool. Because again it's like you have to let it store its charge, but when you unleash it for the first time, like you get this great big electrical explosion, and like it stuns the enemies depending on what the enemy is. Of course, the flame arrow, ice arrow, electric arrow, bomb arrow, those sort of things I've already encountered as well. But I'm curious to see how the other elemental weapons work, or what other elemental weapons there are. But yeah, the thunder sword is really the only, I guess, normal one. Or not normal, the only kind of cool one. I would ask, with those fire rods or the rod type weapons, do they have durability as well from just slinging them, or like a finite amount of magic?
I do think it takes off durably, but not as much as like hitting something.
Gotcha.
I thought you were going to ask what would happen if you wore one or just like equipped it. One? No, I meant like just equip it on your back.
Oh,
it would keep you warm in cold areas.
That's cool. That's cool. I do like that. I do like that a lot. Which would also mean the ice rod would keep you cool in warm areas, I imagine.
Maybe.
Probably. That's pretty sick. Any other questions you got for me?
I don't know. Oh, you haven't finished Varuta yet, so.
No, I haven't finished yet.
Well, I guess that's all I can think of right now.
So, I mean, I think that's a good way. I'll give a quick summary of my thoughts real quick, and then we'll talk about Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah, this is a fantastic game. Like just really well designed. I've said that like 50 million times, but it can't be understated how great it is. I think the challenge dungeon, I call them challenge dungeons, but the shrines, they're like pretty cool. Like I like the shrines way more than I like the Korok seeds. Like they're good puzzles. I found it pretty interesting. And one thing we didn't touch on, I'll ask this question for you because you probably forgot about it. I am playing the Wii U version of the game and not the Switch version. And so see, you couldn't answer that question because you technically played the Wii U version as well. But there's a particular shrine where you have to use the Wii U gamepad to like
to rotate maneuver. The thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. There is a plugin for the very, what's it called? There's a plugin where you can install on your phone and you connect it to your PC over internet or cable and use the gyroscope in the phone.
That's awesome.
Why do I need a phone to play on my Wii U? I don't know.
I mean, you lost your gamepad, man. You lost your gamepad.
Yeah.
Or actually, it broke. The screen broke.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, they're not making new ones anymore. But one thing I'll say too before I talk more about Zelda, I miss my Wii U, man. Like that was my main system. Like it's been a blast to play my Wii U. And so just sort of playing this game on it. One other cool thing, and this is going back to Zelda, load times, like non-existent. Like obviously if you go into like a shrine,
I don't know about that.
Or this bad. Yeah, well, on my dusty Wii U, not your nice premium Wii U that you have, load times are like, you don't have them at all. Like, of course, when you go into a shrine, it does, but that's because obviously it's loading a new environment, but like the overworld doesn't have any loading times. Like, there's not noticeable, like, what's that term for like looking out into the distance? I forget what you call it. What's that's called? What is that called? Like when games sort of load in the background as you move towards it, like it's not loaded until you move closer to it.
I guess level of detail.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, there may not be just a term for it, but like everything you can see, like of course, like sure, maybe the mob goblins may not be at the camp when you look at it from a certain distance, and they might kind of appear in, but it's more natural looking. It doesn't have that sort of nasty pop-in look that you see in a lot of, games.
Arceus.
Like, I was thinking it, I didn't want to say it, but yes, obviously Arceus, and especially Scarlet and Violet, but like the game just runs so well on Wii U. It's crazy. Like, yes, there's been slowdown, and I will say I was a little upset at the slowdown when I was facing the Lionel because the game couldn't handle my awesome skills. So like I'd be going for the parry and then I would lose a few frames, and I still would hit the parry, but I was feeling that nervous, like where did my frame rate go? I need the frame rate to be consistent, but the game just runs so well. I miss the Wii U. I love playing on the Wii U gamepad. The gyroscope functions, I'm sure they exist on Switch, but like they don't actually feel gimmicky. Like they feel good. Like, I can sort of aim with the Wii U gamepad if I'm shooting an arrow, and there's other certain, use cases for it where, moving the gamepad is pretty cool. Yeah, Zelda has been really fun. I kind of hate that I haven't touched it before now. But I really like it a lot. There was something else I was gonna say.
Finally starting to use my recommendations.
I am.
Mob Psycho 2? Come on.
I mean, you're right. Oh, yes. This is random, but Paya is best girl, or I guess her full name is Papaya. I'm not sure. I think it's just Paya, though.
Paya.
She's the Sheikah. She's Impa's granddaughter, I believe. Yeah, she's great. The guy who was crying about his cuckoos, he's great too. I discovered a bit more about that after we talked about it, and you love your cuckoos, man. I support him. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything too unique to say. Like, it's designed right, it plays well, the game. Oh yes. Let me talk about the mechanics really quick. One thing I really love about this game in particular that I feel a lot of games get wrong is you have a bunch of mechanics, right? Like the game really gives you a breadth of mechanics, but it's not just empty mechanics that you have that you can't necessarily use. Like every mechanic has a use, and if you actually master those mechanics, there's tangible, realistic payoff in the game. For instance, I've kept mentioning that Lionel fight, but I come from a fighting game background, so I have pretty decent reflexes when it comes to button presses and timing and that sort of thing. And I understand, it didn't take me that long to actually beat my first Lionel with minimal gear and assistance because I could just parry him, right? And the thing is, the game rewards you for your parries. It rewards you for really diving into the mechanics. If you know how to dodge well, then you get the flurry attacks, right? If you know how to properly utilize maybe your glider, and then you have the slowdown quick time with the arrow, you can use that in certain locations. Everything builds off of itself. It's iterative. The gameplay just feels fantastic. Again, for a beginner player, and that's the thing, you don't have to be that good. You can experience the game your own way. It has stealth function, really good stealth function. And so if you want to go around and be stealthy and kill things that way, or, do things with stealth, you can. The Guardians, for instance. Most new players will run from the Guardians, as they should, right? It's this thing that you don't really know how to kill. It puts fear into you, don't know what to do. But if you have a good grip of the mechanics, like I was stating earlier, you can take a pot lid, which has 1 point of defense, and you can deflect it. And all you have to do is deflect the beam 3 times, and that's it. And you defeat guards. And I actually got my first memory in the game by, I guess there's a little spot, I forget what that spot is called, but it's right in front of Hyrule Castle. And it's the memory where there's the 4 champions, Link and Zelda, and she's christening him as a knight or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I left a pile of bodies of Guardians in my wake, just because I've taken advantage of the mechanics. And I can't stress it. There's Cage 3 or Cage 2 maybe, referring to Kingdom Hearts. It has a wealth of mechanics, but I think one thing with that type of game is it really doesn't, what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't reward you for actually using the breadth of mechanics. Does it make it fun? Can you do cool stuff? Yes, but you can just as easily progress through the game with just mashing in that style of game. With Breath of the Wild, there's real incentive to actually be good with your mechanics. Another example being there's the intro, and that's one more thing I'll complain about, but I'll turn around. There's the intro sort of shrine where you fight one of those little mini guardians. I don't know what those are called. And it sort of teaches you the mechanics, or the little sub combat mechanics. So how to dodge, how to deflect, that sort of thing. And I really don't understand why they locked those tutorial information things behind that shrine, because if you miss that shrine, you technically, you can mash around and figure out how to do that stuff, but you don't have immediate access to that information. Maybe that's just a complaint on my end. But soon after, again, I was in some location that I wasn't supposed to be, and then you have the little challenge, the little battle challenge Guardian, and that thing was coming at me, dude. That thing was so fast, but I had an understanding of these core mechanics, and I could stand my ground. I survived. And then at the end of it, I didn't realize that you could actually hit it, you didn't have to wait for it to charge its Omega Beam, but I let it charge its Omega Beam as it was dying, and I was you know what, all right, I'm about to parry this, and I'm about to get this cool kill. All right, first time it shoots it, I get hit. I was okay, let's do this again. Second time, deflect it, kill it. It's the game just rewards you on so many different levels. In game, the satisfaction of feeling the game. This is the best combat ever in the Zelda franchise, and probably some of the best combat I've played in a video game in a while, for a single player adventure exploration game. It just feels so good, and everything is just so well designed. Just chef kiss. Mwah. Anyways, I'm gonna stop.
Yeah, the game really does reward you for doing pretty much anything.
Yes. And I'm still trying to figure out, applicable use of the shield slaying.
The what?
I haven't, when you can slay with your shield, or what's the thing you do on snowy mountains? You
surf?
What's that thing called? Yeah, surfing. Excuse me. What's that? You don't surf. I guess you snowboard. Yeah, shield boarding.
I think it's called shield surfing in the
shield
game's
yeah.
menu tutorial.
Yeah.
Well, that is one thing you mentioned that occurs in the game, that you can just completely miss mechanics if you don't go in the right place.
And I think that's...
And some things are locked out. Well, not necessarily locked out, but they're not, like, I know in the game menu, there's a control section. You can see special controls where they list parry and shield surf and all that. Those don't get revealed until you get the tutorial area for that thing, even though you can still, like, do the action. So that is one thing that's didn't really like.
Yeah, it's kind of a dumb way to do it, because I mean, like, especially that, you know, the combat one, right, where it teaches you how to backdash or, you know, sidestep or how to parry. Like, those are so pivotal. Like, they're so pivotal, and you could completely miss that and not know it's in the game. And especially for somebody who, you know, newer school, you know, game players who are used to like having the information up front, like they may never like experiment with pressing buttons and doing stuff, that they would never find it. And it's just like, that's not a great way to do that, because it's very easy to miss a shrine, especially if you're just following, again, the intended path of progression. I only randomly found that because I was just kind of messing around, which the game really wants you to just mess around while also following the path. But
I mean, I see why they did it that way. The game is definitely about exploration and discovery first, so you can learn all those mechanics without doing the shrine. But how many people are going to do that?
Not a lot. Not a lot, especially like you have to think about it too. Like, I feel like as advanced and deep as the mechanics are, like, it's pretty welcoming. Like, you don't have to be like, again, you know, I said I come from a fighting game background. You don't necessarily need that to play this game and to be good at it. You just, you know, you might need to practice a little bit more, but like, you can do all these things, and there's ways to... Oh, that's the other thing. Like, you don't have to follow the correct way to do things. Thinking about like the tutorial section, right, where you have to go up to the snow mountain to get to the particular shrine to unlock one of the runes or whatever. There's an actual like path that you go, because at this point obviously you don't have the stamina to climb directly up the thing, right? And so there's like a little path where there's little stepping stones that, you know, work with the amount of stamina that you have that you can follow. I didn't know about that. I just brute forced the hell out of it. I got a bunch of the stamina mushrooms and I cooked them, and I just barely made my way up to the top, right? And like, there's some shrines, for instance, where, you know, there's a way that you're supposed to do it, but like, you can kind of, if so long as the mechanics allow, and so long as, you know, you have the thought, like, you can do what you want. And it's so cool, because obviously we see that a lot in the you know, all of the challenges that people do and all the unique like little game breaking things that people have posted on social media and stuff like that, and those are cool. But like, when you just get down to it, to a basic like player level, like, the game is just really a free-for-all for like, if you can see it and if you have the inspiration to do it, then you can do it. And I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, that's one thing I think people don't really get about the Nintendo way, is if Nintendo really wanted you to do something a certain way with no other options, they would have locked you out of it. So you're right that as long as the mechanics of the game allow you, it's valid.
Yeah, and it just makes the game more fun.
Yeah, we're really seeing a lot of it in Tears of the Kingdom, about people like cheesing. They think, oh, they're breaking the game, cheesy games. Like, no, if you're not like exploiting the game's code or something that's like glitching through walls, then it's valid.
Yeah. And I think that's a good segue to Tears of the Kingdom, honestly. I think I don't think there's anything else I need to say. You're about to say something?
Some very small things that I want to ask if you tried.
Go ahead.
Have you ever tried doing anything with all your gear unequipped? You're naked.
No, but I have seen and heard that, you know, you'll get various response. Obviously, I said Paya is best girl. I know she'll be like, please put your clothes on. I know that's a thing, and I also see that maybe it's more of a thing in Tears of the Kingdom as well. We could talk about that later. But
I haven't tried swimming while naked.
I have not tried that.
Well,
you can tell me what happens.
Yeah, I don't think the game will ever tell you what happens. It's just something you just have to try out and discover on your own. But it does help you swim further and use less stamina if you unequip all your stuff.
That makes a lot of sense. You know, I did think about that when I was either climbing or swimming. Like, I had this giant hammer. I was like, I wonder if I take this off, if I'm gonna move a little faster. So that's cool.
And also like different weapons and the materials the weapons are made of to make different amounts of noise and all that helps with your stealth. I think there's one interaction that I like that they thought of when you kick open a chest while not wearing any shoes. You just have to try it out.
I'm gonna have to try that out then. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, well, that's all I have on Breath of the Wild.
Gotcha. Yeah, Breath of the Wild is
it's brilliant.
It is a brilliant game.
Man, I didn't even ask anything about the music. Man, it's top tier.
I mean, it's good. I think for me, like, I'm so tuned into what I'm playing, like, I don't necessarily hear it. Like, there's
that's the point.
Themes I've heard.
You're not supposed to notice it. It's like background supportive, like mood music.
Yeah. I will say, this is something I was thinking about before the podcast. Like, it's pretty neat that some of the best Zeldas have come off of I guess, some of the worst times for Nintendo. So, like, Twilight Princess obviously was a GameCube title, but was, put on Wii to launch with the Wii. So it was the swan song for the GameCube and the birth of the Wii, which was arguably probably one of their biggest consoles. I guess is probably their biggest console. And then same thing with Breath of the Wild, the swan song for the Wii U and the birth of the Switch. And man, what a birth of a game to have. Like, Twilight Princess was big back in the day, but this is beautiful, man. Like, I kind of hate I let that 3 gigabyte installation keep me from playing this all those years ago. I've been sitting on this game for 6 years unopened. That's kind of crazy. But it runs like a dream on Wii U. And one more thing about the Wii U, I really like the fact, again, with the gamepad, like, I mean, the Switch does this much better, so it's not really a thing or whatever, but I can play it on my TV and then I can just switch it to the gamepad view. It is disappointing, like we talked about, that they didn't make it to where, like, you can have, like, your inventory and stuff on the Wii U screen. Like, I guess I understand from the perspective of you don't want the Wii U to be the superior version of the game, but I feel like, at that point, like, who cares? Like, well, I guess it is, the Switch was launching at that point, so, like, it doesn't have the crazy, like, I guess, presence in the gaming market that it does now, but still, that's a huge missed opportunity. But I mean, it's cool. I can just tap the screen, then I can put it on the gamepad, and then I can move to a different room if I need to and play the game. But yeah, that is Breath of the Wild. And
Breath of the Wild was so good. It gave me so much confidence into pre-ordering the game and going out and buying the Zelda OLED edition.
Yeah.
And I've pre-ordered maybe 3 games in the past 12, 13 years. And
that's crazy.
Tears of the Kingdom was one of them.
And I mean, it seems like it didn't disappoint. And so I guess it's time for me to ask my questions. And obviously, I won't have specific questions because I haven't played. But I guess the best question to start off with Tears of the Kingdom, right, is what differences between the two games have you acknowledged? And do you like those differences? Are you sort of indifferent to the differences? Do you dislike the differences? What sort of makes Tears of the Kingdom stand as its own? I mean, obviously, it's a very integrated sequel, but what differences are there?
I wouldn't say it's differences. It's more like a full-on entire upgrade. If, like, Breath of the Wild definitely feels like a beta game compared to Tears of the Kingdom.
That's crazy.
I mean, I think that was kind of I don't know what they call it, but that's kind of the feeling when you see some, I don't know, like, compared to, if you put them side by side, like, you can definitely see, like, oh, this is Nintendo's first attempt at making an open world game, and all the interactions and physics and everything. So I don't think there's anything worse about the game at all. The only thing that I could possibly describe as worse is that it's got that sequelitis, and I'm stealing that term from Egoraptor. But Breath of the Wild, since it was the first of its kind, when I played it, I didn't know anything at all about the game, about the world, how much detail there is, how the interactions, anything. So everything was new. It's all brand new discovery. And so 6 years later, when Tears of the Kingdom came out, all the players who have played the first game do have an expectation of, oh, this works this way, and this is probably going to work this way. So there's a little bit loss of, like, a bright, sparkly-eyed discovery and experience.
But still better. Like, it's still you wouldn't even call it an iterative. So you wouldn't say it's iterative change. It's like it's the full. I guess if we want to use like website terms, Breath of the Wild was the development build, and Tears of the Kingdom is the production build.
I guess you could say that.
Yeah, no, cool. What was my next?
I mean,
question?
if you liked Breath of the Wild for all the things that you mentioned before, then you'll definitely love Tears of the Kingdom because it takes all of that and just like cranks it to 10 enhancement, all of that, all the little weird things like all the quality of life updates that you wouldn't know were quality of life updates without if you didn't play the first game. Like you've probably experienced it when you open a chest and it says your inventory's full and you gotta back out and drop a thing and open the chest again. Well, they fixed that.
Thank God, because it's so annoying. It's like, okay, well, give me the option to just like quick swap then.
Well,
okay.
Yeah, it's there.
Awesome. What's your most favorite new mechanic?
I don't know. The whole like building and construction and everything and all the engineering. There's the subreddit Hyrule Engineering. People make the most insane shit, like flying drones with tracking missiles and everything. Gundams, mecha robots.
Oh, wait. I can see why you didn't want to spoil this. So I've seen some of the vehicles and stuff, but you're telling me like we're full on like.
Oh, there's a
if
whole
we want to
be like engineering school on this.
Oh my god! So if we want to be Dr. Light in the lab, Dr. Gero, whoever. We want to make Gundams, and that's crazy. Yo, what? So how do you? So what element of the game introduces that? Again, we're here, so we're just. This is spoilers. If you were interested in the Breath of the Wild section, but you don't want to hear anything about Tears of the Kingdom,
I try to keep it not too much spoilers, but since in the game trailers they do show you like a little bit of what you can do because it is part of the starting area, like kind of in Breath of the Wild. You're in the Grand Plateau, and they give you all the abilities on that plateau. So it's similar for Tears of the Kingdom.
Gotcha.
But the thing is, Nintendo just gives you these mechanics, and they're like, "Yeah, have fun," and all the other things you can use it with. It's just people experimenting, see the limitations of how it works, and sticking them together in certain ways. And it's kind of like in Minecraft, where you get all these blocks. Some blocks have like they do a special function, but some people like turn that into building a whole computer, like actual computer with a memory and a graphics renderer inside Minecraft.
You're not telling me y'all are doing that in Tears of the Kingdom too, are you?
I mean, I'm sure somebody out there has figured out how to use all these things and build a computer.
Oh my goodness!
I haven't seen it, but it's eventually.
Was Aonuma done, man? I have some Googling to do.
No, you don't.
It's not.
I don't know.
I gotta see, I at least gotta see the Gundam, man. I'm sure it's not an actual Gundam, but I mean, like, I gotta see something.
Well, if
like
you see /Hyrule Engineering, you get all kinds of shit there.
That's if Reddit's still not blacked out, but that's a whole other thing that we're not talking about.
I'll check if it's open.
Story.
It's open.
It's open. We'll go home. We'll go take a peek. Story. What how do you feel about the continuation of the story versus, what Breath of the Wild introduced? Do you think it's a good continuation? You think it's an okay continuation? I guess some of that will stem how you felt about the original story. So give me your thoughts on that.
I mean, Tears of the Kingdom is definitely the game that feels like an actual next chapter because it's the same world, same universe, same characters that you get to meet again throughout your travels and see, how you've been, or like what you've been doing all this time. And there are certain, I wish there could have been more, I would say, because go ahead. Sorry. There's some things I wish should have been acknowledged or could have been acknowledged, but there just wasn't there when I was expecting it.
Which you've only, if I remember correctly, told me you only really got to like half of the game before like beating it, I believe, or maybe 75.
I did complete the main story and all the side quest stories.
Gotcha. Okay,
that 50% mark that includes all the non-collected Korok seeds, any towers you haven't like revealed or stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Or any pictures you haven't taken.
Gotcha. Does Zelda play a more active role in this game? Like, obviously she's you're going to rescue her from Hyrule Castle in Breath of the Wild. But is she more active in Tears of the Kingdom?
Kinda, sorta. She does play a big role, but not in the way that you expect.
Gotcha.
And then because of that, you're kind of wondering, like, did Nintendo really intertwine this as much as they could have or wanted to? It wasn't bad though. I don't think it was bad.
Gotcha. Well, on that note too, do you like encounter or meet a lot of the I guess same towns and maybe some of even the same NPCs that you saw from Breath of the Wild, or is there more I guess new locales and individuals? Because obviously I've seen a few of the trailers for Tears of the Kingdom, and I know there's a big emphasis on the sky. So I'm not sure like how fleshed out the world is in regards to, I guess, pre-existing things that we've seen.
I mean, in terms of characters, they're all still there.
Okay.
So I mean, yeah, they're all still there. I'll imagine. Oh, there is one character that I wish, or maybe DLC, hopefully, that isn't there at all. I don't know. No one knows what happened to him. I don't know if you've met him already. He shows up at the stables a lot.
Which stables?
All the stables. He just shows up a lot. He's always there.
Well, hold the phone. You telling me they got rid of my boy Beetle?
No.
Oh,
he's there.
Okay. Who else shows up at trying to think. Who shows up at the stables?
Well, maybe not at the stable, but sometimes at the stable. He's usually around nearby.
I'm trying to think. There's a few NPC dudes that are always walking the road selling. Can't think of the only person I feel like I see everywhere, but it's not really lives there is Beetle. But you can just tell me. I might remember if you tell me the name.
It's the Cass, the accordion playing Rito.
Ritos are the birds.
Yeah, the bird people.
See, I've only met him once. And that was I didn't go into that. Man, I got so many stories from playing this game, and I've only played it in a week. It's kind of crazy. I only met him that one time. There's a particular shrine quest where you need to guide a deer into a particular section in order to unlock the shrine.
What?
So I haven't seen him past that.
I don't remember that shrine at all.
It's fairly early. Like you have to ride on the back of a buck, and then you have to take that buck to a
Yeah, I didn't do that.
Interesting.
Well, when I played Breath of the Wild, I didn't know that there was all of this stuff to do.
Yeah, that's fair. Let me see. Another question. Do you think Tears of the Kingdom was worth? This is a stupid question, but it just came to mind. Do you think it's worth $70?
It's definitely. I feel it's worth $70. $60 would have been nice, but I'm also making up for my non-purchase before.
For your borrowed Wii U and
yeah.
Breath of the Wild disc.
And I feel like I more than made up for that after buying this OLED edition.
Yeah. So how does it feel to return to, I guess the Breath of the Wild style game? Like the last time, would you say the last time you've played Breath of the Wild prior to any maybe like I'm gonna play this just for fun to sort of catch up again? Like
I did try to play it again on my because before when I played it, I had a pretty weak hardware, so it was practically performing just like a Wii U with a little bit of enhancements and stuff. But I did try playing it on like a ultra wide on my new hardware. Like, oh no, just couldn't get into it again.
Tell you where you're like, there's the new hotness out now. I mean, I can imagine once you've played the game to your feel, like
that magic,
it's kind of hard to
kinda...
Yeah. But again, I feel like again, part of it too is just how the investment in the mechanic. It sounds to me like you like sort of the world and the building. Like you enjoy the mechanics and stuff, but it's like it's the wonder of like figuring things out and experiencing the world fresh without any sort of, knowledge of it.
Yeah.
Because it makes it feel less gamey. It's an experience.
Yeah.
I got you. And yeah, I mean, I can feel that because again, the game, like it's a gamey game, but it's also, it's like...
It really is open world, like in all sense of the words.
Yeah, it's like what you feel like they were trying to do with the original NES, Legend of Zelda, right? Like, but now they were actually able to fully, do it.
I will say, I did have a little bit of caution when they did say, oh, Tears of the Kingdom uses the same map. And I was like, that's kind of iffy.
I didn't know that. That's why I asked that question earlier. I didn't know that.
When I guess technically it is the same map with the same geometry in many places, but they changed it up so much that it felt completely, well, maybe not completely, but very unfamiliar. It's like, I've never been in this place before.
That's cool. That's pretty cool.
And
so
there is
speaking
one
of
secret that I can't believe Nintendo was able to hold it for so long, and they never revealed it until people got their hands on the game.
Interesting. Well, speaking of secrets, right? So
I mean, you might have seen it, but
I probably haven't. I don't think I know what you're referring to. Ganon. All right. So I was under the impression like, okay, this is the return of Ganon for Tears of the Kingdom, even though like Calamity Ganon is the main antagonist of Breath of the Wild. How do you feel about, I guess, Ganon and his role in this game versus, I guess, Ganon's role in Breath of the Wild? Because at least the Ganon now that I see, it's more of his original incarnation, sort of the pig monster, sort of just evil beast, right? But this one, in Tears of the Kingdom, at least from some of the few things I saw, it's the intelligent, like, sort of cunning, sort of just slick evil of, the more humanoid, what's the race called?
Gerudo.
Ganon's a part of? Yeah, the Gerudos. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the antagonist angle in this game.
I mean, I don't think it's any worse or better than all the previous games, because he's not a huge part of, like, your adventure.
Interesting. So similar to Calamity Ganon in that aspect, then.
Kinda, not really. Because Calamity Ganon can be more expanded to all the evil grossness and dark wavy stuff around the world. Like when you defeat or release evil from different things, that's Calamity Ganon. But I guess there's a similar thing in Tears of the Kingdom. It's called Gloom, all the dark, smudgy, muddy stuff.
But even so, it sounds like to me you're saying like,
but Ganon himself
he's way more detached.
Yeah, he's not
Calamity Ganon.
I mean, I guess you could say that all the gloom comes from him, but it's not. But Ganon, as a character himself, is not a huge part of your adventure until you get towards the end.
Interesting, pretty interesting. So he's just always sort of looming, but almost even forgettable until you get to a certain point. That's an interesting way. I feel like the way they were hyping him up, like he'd have more of an active presence in the story. Like obviously Calamity Ganon, again, like he's the evil thing in the castle, but like you said, right, like he's sort of forefront at all of the bad things that are happening in Hyrule. But interesting.
Yeah, he's like the root of all the bad things, but he doesn't like show up.
Interesting.
Well, I guess there are similar side quests to like the memory things. That you can learn more about it.
Does Link have a similar memory situation in this game, or is it just more specifically learning more about, I guess, certain events? We don't have to be specific.
I guess more of the latter.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not Link's memories. He's not like amnesiac this game.
Gotcha. Obviously the 4 champions are big fan favorites. Do they have any presence in this game, or are they're done?
The champions from the
from Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, which is disappointing.
So is there anything equivalent to it? Because I mean, I feel like they're like, obviously
if you want equivalent stuff, sure, there's plenty.
Okay,
but those 4 specific people, those champions, they don't really make an appearance.
That kind of sucks though, because I mean, they're so cool, man. Like to me, it sort of feels like the equivalent of like, let me say, Paper Mario, right? Like early Paper Mario. I don't know how much you know about Paper Mario, but like you got all of these unique, like cool characters that are obviously based off of the Mario spawn, so Goombella or Koops and stuff like that, right? I really feel like the 4 champions were like awesome ways to sort of really integrate these sort of subcultures or these different races that are obviously Zelda mainstays, but put them at the forefront. And I guess you said there's equivalents, so I'm sure there's still some good hotness there, but I really like that they were pushing those characters, especially with what's the Musou game spinoff?
Age of Calamity.
I forget. Yeah, Age of Calamity. Like it really felt like they're more and more like using these characters. I mean, obviously they've passed away by the times of Breath of the Wild, so I mean, there's only so much you can do with dead characters, but
Yeah, the champions in Breath of the Wild they're pretty goated. Like,
yeah, they're really cool.
Sheesh.
And I kind of hate that we're playing from the angle that they're dead. I kind of wish like maybe they were just sort of chilling in the divine beast. I know they're in the divine beast in a finger air quotes, but you know.
Oh, you haven't actually. I just remembered you haven't actually seen any of them.
I have not.
Damn.
So maybe I'll learn more by the time we end this podcast because I'm probably gonna play and try to beat that one. But let me see. I mean, is there any specific? I think you sort of covered really all of my questions. Again, I don't have specific questions because I haven't played. I have some general questions about Zelda in general, but not necessarily Tears of the Kingdom. I already asked you what's your favorite new mechanic, but I guess what are you enjoying most outside of like obviously, you know, the just exploring and experiencing things for the first time. What did you enjoy most out of Tears of the Kingdom?
I guess it is kind of like a double-edged sword of not being able to discover brand new things, like fresh-eyed like experience. But I did really like getting to go back to all those places you visited before and see what changed. Like visiting all the NPCs and towns and everything. See what happened. What are they doing now? I don't know anything like game specific, like game mechanics or yeah, I don't have anything.
I mean, again, experience is just a good answer if that's really what it was, because I mean, I think that's a fantastic thing. If a game has transcended its mechanics and playing and it's more like I'm enjoying this world, I think that's still awesome. So let me ask you some general Zelda questions. So I feel like we've talked about this off the podcast, but I sort of forget. What's your experience with Zelda as a property?
I did play a bit of Link to the Past. I did try, I didn't beat Link to the Past, but I did try a little bit of what is it? Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, but it was just a bit too clunky for me. That's been spoiled on all these modern games. I really liked Wind Waker, played all of that, the HD version. I've watched playthroughs on Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword, but I think Breath of the Wild was the first one I just blindly played, picked up and decided to play. Before
Breath of the Wild, would you have considered yourself a Zelda fan or just more so? Because I think I would like to do another podcast with you, because one thing that you told me that you do is like, you know, you would find information on Nintendo Power stuff, or I don't know if it's specifically Nintendo Power or maybe it's just old retro magazines, but would you consider yourself a Zelda fan? Was it Nintendo-ish fan,
I don't think I'd say a fan. Like, I enjoyed their place in the game industry and what they did, or what they do, I guess, like both Zelda and Nintendo in general. But I wasn't like a fan that would buy all their releases or consoles merch and whatever.
Okay. So really it was Breath of the Wild that sort of was like, okay, I like Zelda now, or more so, I like Breath of the Wild. I like this style of game. Keep more of this, please. And I really think that's the reason I bring that up too, is I think it's an interesting point. Like I've talked with coworkers about Breath of the Wild, and you know, you're not the first person to be like, you need to play Breath of the Wild, or you know, you need to play Tears of the Kingdom. So many people, you know, I've talked to, and like obviously like you said, Zelda has like a huge important place in games or in gaming history. And they're always beloved, and you know, people are always rushing out to buy them. But I feel like there's a large subset of people, you know, particularly who know of this importance, and, you know, like you maybe watch a playthrough or maybe try a few of the, you know, golden titles like Ocarina of Time or something like that, but like that's it. But I feel like Breath of the Wild, and probably even now like Tears of the Kingdom, have sort of opened the floodgates for a lot of these people who, you know, maybe just had this passing interest. Now they love Zelda, or at the very least they love Breath of the Wild, and they love what the series has become. I think from your view, at least from what you've seen, do you feel like Tears of the Kingdom has sort of had the same level of influence that Breath of the Wild has? Because again, like you said, it's not new anymore. It is a sequel. It has expanded and improved, but it hasn't necessarily redefined like Breath of the Wild has. So do you sort of feel like, from what you've seen regarding Tears of the Kingdom and even your own experience, like it still has that ability to influence people, or you know, people really want to get their hands on it?
Yeah, I'd say Tears of the Kingdom is bigger and better in every way.
But is the magic the same? And what I say when I say that, like, I don't mean like just the initial experience of like just wonder. I mean like obviously like it's the same map and it's sort of the same graphical style and it's some of the same beats, but like I don't really know the best way to explain it. It's like there's certain shows or certain games that just have that magical essence to it, right? And so does Tears of the Kingdom sort of embody that, or is it just a mechanical improvement to Breath of the Wild? Does that question make sense?
I mean, there are, well, when I say bigger and better and everything, I say it's equal or bigger and better. I wouldn't say there's maybe one thing I would say is worse in Tears of the Kingdom that's just straight up annoying. But I feel like to really appreciate Tears of the Kingdom, you have to play Breath of the Wild first, and you have to play them like you can't just play one. You can play Breath of the Wild on its own, but you can't play Tears of the Kingdom without Breath of the Wild.
Gotcha.
Because I don't think people will really appreciate what Tears of the Kingdom is without first knowing what Breath of the Wild was.
And that's the point I'm sort of getting
at. So
like, is it...
I guess it's kind of impossible for Tears of the Kingdom to be embody that magic because you didn't know where that magic came from.
Very interesting. That's a very interesting thing, and
it's like
eventually one day,
like I mentioned before, like Mob Psycho 2.
Mm-hmm.
You won't appreciate Mob Psycho 2 without seeing Mob Psycho 1. That's just
that is a fact. That is an actual fact.
You got to know where they came from, man.
Yeah. Still need to watch 3. Still need to watch season. But you tell me sort of some of the things that you may want to talk about, unless you've already sort of maybe exhausted things that you would like to say about Tears of the Kingdom. But what's something that stood out to you, stories or feelings or opinions, etc.?
I've seen a lot of people online saying, I think I mentioned before, oh, I'm cheesing the game, I'm doing the most efficient run, just skipping all the Nintendo way, going straight to the end of the shrine and everything. It's like, yeah, that's fine. Just acknowledge that you're skipping like the core part of the game, which is exploration and discovery and fun. And it's also not technically cheesing if it's allowed by the game design.
I mean, if you have the full engineering thing, it seems like to me like, you know, they're sort of just giving you the keys, like play this however you want, like just do whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there is the Nintendo way, and I recommend people play the Nintendo way most of the time because they might miss out on a learning experience that they may not have learned if they just cheesed over it or skipped it, or flying over something with a paraglider, flying in straight lines. You miss out on all the rewards and experiences on the ground, or doing it on the path. I've also seen people say the game gives you too much freedom. Like, there's no such thing as too much freedom. It's like, my brother, you're the one pressing the buttons.
I mean, well, I guess it depends on what you're inferring to. Again, like I told you, like open world games are overwhelming to me. So to a degree, I can understand that sentiment of too much freedom.
I mean, too much freedom as in they allow you to skip things or puzzles or whatever entirely by doing it a different way. Not that it's overwhelming with so many different options.
Yeah.
Because it's like a buffet of different things. You don't know where to start, but you just gotta start somewhere and work your way through. But these people are like going straight for the dessert at the end. It's like, that's not what the game's about. It's about the journey. I was like, I guess you can play that way. You don't have to eat the rest of the food. You can go straight to the dessert, but why?
Yeah, I don't know why you would pick up a game like
Yeah, I paid $70 to speed run this game in 1 hour, sure.
But see, and the thing with that too, though, is like I've seen it online. Like you said, I've seen the argument online. Like, sure, if you want to speed run it, go ahead. Like, that's your $70. Like, and some people like get really pissed. They're like, oh well, you know, I don't blah 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 blah. It's like, well, if they want to speed run. Oh, and that's more. I think these people were more so targeting like actual speedrunners, right? Who want to optimize the game.
Yeah, I'm not talking about actual speedrunners because.
Oh, I know what you're talking. You're talking about people
who do it the most efficient way of doing everything. They skip over to things using the same methods. Like, oh, we'll just glitch through this wall and not bother with the rest of it.
Yeah. Oh, that brings up an interesting point before I let you go back to things you may want to talk about. I saw a lot of fuss about this, I think it's like a rupee glitch or something like that, or item duplication glitch. Duplication sounds right. Tell me a little about that if you know anything about that, because I saw it got patched, sorta.
I mean, it got patched and people found another way.
The end.
I mean, people... I understand. I've seen complaints about people like, oh, don't item dupe. It's like a lot of people like, I'll play however the game I want to play. It's like, yeah, that's fine too. But just people who do say, oh, don't do it that way. It's like, no, they can play however they want. But I also see the other side of people saying, I'll play however I want to play. I spent my $70. Like, yeah, that's cool too. Just acknowledge that whatever you do in the game, there's a trade-off for everything.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to duplicate all these items and skip the grind of everything, like, fine. But just make note that you might miss over some cool experiences while doing that.
Yeah. Which, I mean, again, I understand both sides too, because older I get, the less time I have. And so it's like,
yeah,
do I want to spend all this time doing this stuff, or do I want to, like, sort of get the goods? And because I mean, I think that's the great thing about the game too. Like, it's not like you're just, the grind is everything. Like, there's so much and there's so many cool moments. At least speaking from Breath of the Wild, like, yes, I've done a lot of grinding, but then when I get back to the main set pieces, like, the main set pieces are awesome. Like, the Varuta thing I was not expecting, but it was so cool. And I know there's more cool things in store, right? So it's sort of like, I grind a lot, but now I'm sort of like, I want to get back to this main quest. So I can really understand those people like, yeah, I just want to do the cool stuff. But then there's also, the other end of that where it's just like, but this is a methodical game. I mean, there's so much to find and
say,
do.
Oh, I want to do all the cool stuff. Always like, but you don't realize how much cool stuff you're missing if you just skip to the what do you think is cool stuff. Well,
and it can be understated, like
I am saddened by the fact that there's so much content in the game that people will never see because they just don't know it's there, just don't want to do it. Like, there's probably hundreds of thousands of dialogue that is never going to be seen by anybody because sometimes they happen under specific circumstances, or you don't have this item that you need, or just didn't bother doing it. And it's like, oof, all the artists and writers who put all their effort in.
But I mean, part of that too is like, I mean, for me, again, like I was saying earlier, NPCs are such a staple, but they're such a useless staple. Like, there was a certain point where I would try to talk to people, and then I realized this is useless. This is a waste of time. I'm just gonna play the game, right? Like, there's certain instances where it expands the world, but like, I feel like gamers have been conditioned to sort of not really care for that type of stuff because, there's just so many examples of it not really adding anything besides flavor text. And of course, I feel like Zelda does a good, or at least Breath of the Wild does a good job of like, sort of dismissing that early. Like, as soon as you start interacting with certain individuals, like, there's some real meat here, there's some uniqueness here. But there's still some trappings of like, useless NPC conversation. And I mean, obviously Zelda is just as guilty, not Breath of the Wild per se, but like previous Zelda titles are just as guilty of that sort of useless NPC stuff. Like, so I can see it from that perspective.
I want to say that some of it is part of it, that it's trying to also include the non-gamer or the casual gamer and not like more dedicated gamers like us too. Like, we know how games function, like pretty much like internally how they expect us to do things. And I would say a good bit of dialogue or flavor text and all that is maybe obvious to us, but maybe not obvious to other players because the game is rated E10 and up. So this is obviously meant to also include children in the player base.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a great point too. Like, children are gonna interact with these NPCs, they're gonna interact with these characters, and like, I don't know, I can't think of a random character, but let's just say Prince Sidon. Prince Sidon is going to resonate with some kid, and he's gonna grow up, and he's gonna remember Prince Sidon for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, we're gonna be like, who is that? That the guy from the Rito village? That Ganon's subordinate? Like, who is that? Right? So I do agree. Like, it's very nuanced conversation. And at the end of the day, like you said, enjoy the game however you want. Just understand that there's sides to everything. While you might lose a lot of time really taking your time with it, like, your experience is just going to be so much deeper and more beautiful and more. There's just going to be a lot more with that experience. On the flip side of that, you'll save time if you skip stuff, but you may really skip something that might strike a chord with you. Like, and that's just that. Yeah, is there anything else that you want to talk about with Tears of the Kingdom?
It's Prince Sidon, I'm pretty sure.
You bastard. I knew you were gonna correct me. But yes. Anything else on your...
I don't know. Music slaps, of course. Whoever thought to put a saxophone in the main theme is brilliant.
there we go. To touch on, I think we can hit our closing remarks. As you can probably tell, I've grown to love the game over the course of this week, and I'll see how far I get before I complete it. I'll see if I actually complete it. I don't have the time like I used to dedicate to games like this, and I'm just like, I know I could spend a month playing this game and probably not be done with it. Heck, I mean, you took you what, like a month to finish it? Tears of the Kingdom?
Just over 3 weeks. I spent over 130 hours.
Oh, good.
I think
yes.
that averages out to 5 to 5.5 hours a day.
No way. I don't have that time anymore. I used to, but I don't. But like, I'm really glad to get. I know, but I'm really glad that I got that this opportunity to play it. I guess, or I took the opportunity to play it. Got me really excited to see what the Zelda team does in the future. I think special recognition needs to go to Monolith Soft, because I think they're a huge part of the success of this particular duology of games. And it has me excited to play some of their other titles as well. Like, I mean, I've always had an interest in Xenoblade, and I tried to play the original on Wii. I didn't quite get as far as I would like, but I'm definitely gonna go back and play those. But yeah, everything is great. The sound is great. The English voice acting was great.
I couldn't get over British Zelda. Kind of weird.
It kind of is, but you get used to it. You get used to it. I really love the art style. One thing I like to touch on with that is Wind Waker is probably my most favorite Zelda title.
Yes.
And the thing with Wind Waker is I love the colors, I love the expressiveness of the characters, I love the designs, and obviously that was a big issue back in the day on GameCube, and so that's why Twilight Princess was the next title, gritty, dark, realistic-ish, right? But I feel like Breath of the Wild and subsequently Tears of the Kingdom, they really do a great job of sort of the color and expressiveness and fun of Wind Waker with sort of more of the artistic direction of, or character design style of, like Twilight Princess or Skyward Sword. Or I guess maybe it's more apt to say that Breath of the Wild looks a lot more like, Skyward Sword. But I really like that balance between the two. Like, the game's just great to look at. Like, everything's just great to look at. It feels good. It plays good. Again, the combat is immaculate. It is so good. It is so good.
I know you mentioned before, like, all the unique looking NPCs. I believe they used something similar to the Mii Maker system to generate all those characters.
Yeah, but I remember reading an article on that, and I was like, that's crazy. So you're telling me this is all built on Mii's? They live. Our Mii's live. I wouldn't mind Mii's coming back. I'll be honest, but
yeah, the art style of the game is like, and all the character designs, like, this is the Link they made in Breath of the Wild. Like, everyone immediately knew this is the definitive Link. Yeah. This is lore accurate Link.
Beautiful man. I've been wanting to make a joke about Link being beautiful and in a more real world, probably not good for a podcast sort of sense. I'll tell you after we're done. But yeah, just everything looks good. Like, the character designs are really great. And again, I can't stress enough, the 4 champions are so cool. Like, I haven't spent as much time with them as I eventually will, but like, so I really like what they did with all of the characters in the game, and I think a large part of that is owed to Wind Waker, because without Wind Waker, I mean, sure, they may have still gotten to that more cel-shaded sort of colorful style, but I feel it laid the spirit tracks for what we got in Breath of the Wild. But I don't know, man, like, I'm very interested to see what they do next with Zelda, because I don't think they can get away with just doing another iterative, like, maybe they can, maybe they do a brand new map.
I don't think they'll do it.
Yeah, I think they're gonna do something else. So I'm very curious what to see.
Yeah, it'll be tough
what they do.
I don't think they'll make a third part, but it's gonna be hard to surpass what they've made with these two.
Yeah, and it speaks volumes to sort of Nintendo, and especially the Zelda team, where like they're constantly I think with like Zelda up to this point, right? Like, it's always been a staple in the industry, but it's never been to the point where like people were like copying it per se, right? Like, with Mario, Mario gave boon to the platformer genre with like maybe Halo 2, 3, the original, I forget which one, and especially like stuff like Gears, like you got iterations from those games. Like, you always had that one game that sort of inspired other games, and Zelda never really really did that. It was always just appreciated. Like elements from it would be taken and put into other games, but other games more so did their own thing. But it feels like Breath of the Wild like really set a new bar for gaming, and you literally got direct copies of it.
Yeah, it's really just fresh and new and very novel ideas that you don't see anywhere else.
Yeah, it actually has me really excited to play one of those direct copies which Ubisoft put out, which I cannot think of the name, but it's one that focuses on the Greek gods. I saw it and I was like, man, this looks kind of fun, so I'm excited to play that one. Probably not immediately after playing Breath of the Wild, but I'm excited to play that one.
Really? Ubisoft put out something?
Yeah.
Oh, Phoenix
I'm
Rising?
surprised you never... Is it Phoenix Rising?
Immortals Phoenix Rising?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I like the humor in that game, and I like the character designs. I have a passing interest in, like, I guess it's Greek and Roman mythology.
I think it is Greek.
So anyways, I'm excited to see what they do in the future, and especially after finally playing the game after 6 years of owning it. Yeah, this is awesome. And I have to state it, this is the Wii U's game. It's not the Switch's game. At least Breath of the Wild. Tears of the Kingdoms is the Switch's game, but Breath of the Wild is the Wii U's game, and I think it's very poetic that, you know, a system that was marred with controversy and ridicule and, you know, just bad press and stuff. Its swan song game is probably one of the best games of our generation, one of the best games ever by a lot of people. I think that's fitting. You know, never count Nintendo out because they're always scheming.
That reminds me. Since you're on Wii U, have you got a horse?
Yes.
Okay. What'd you name your horse?
I've had a few horses. My first horse I called OG because I knew she wouldn't last. But my current horse I call Loner because I found her alone on a mountain, and yeah, she was one of the most like I can't sneak up on this thing type horses that I encountered in the game so far.
Did you read how the difference between the spotted horses and colored horses?
Yep. Yeah. OG is a spotted one. Loner is a full colored one. So she has much more stamina. She was much harder to tame. But
did you have?
And she actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was just gonna say the interesting thing with Loner too that I haven't noticed with some of the other ones is like again when I say Loner was like very, and I don't know if this is just maybe me making this up, right? But with Loner, like I really could not sneak up on this horse. Like I had already gotten a full colored horse before this, but like this particular one, I thought maybe she was special because I was like, man, I really can't like get the horse. And a lot of times I'll notice with Loner that I haven't noticed with some of the other horses that I have is that like she'll just dart, man. Like I'll just get off of her and she'll just go do her own thing somewhere.
Have you been soothing?
It's almost no, it's fully like maxed. Like I've boarded her and everything. Like that's my horse, but like Loner will just like randomly, like I know the horse will sometimes get spooked and run, but like that's not the case. Like I'll get off of her and then she'll just like dart somewhere in some other direction just randomly sometimes, and that's the same sort of behavior that it did.
And you still soothe them after you like soothe for correction, right?
Oh yeah, like I still well, like I know like once you've fully friended them, like that doesn't mean you stop soothing them. Like I soothe the horse
like it's maxed out.
Yeah, like it's maxed out. I soothed it after it being maxed out, especially like if it accidentally gets hit or I run into enemies and stuff like that. And I, you know, this is just me experiencing the game. I know it's kind of stupid, but like I'll just randomly feed it apples because, you know, it's my horse, man. But
you feed it carrots?
Yeah, no, because I don't have a lot of those.
Okay.
So I just feed it the apples. But anyway, just random tidbit. I thought that was interesting. I didn't know if that was maybe me just making up stuff in my head or if that was an actual thing.
Horses have a different temperament,
their own behavior.
Well,
I did saw that it was like wild temperament, so maybe that's why.
Yeah.
But my other wild temperament one did not do that, so I thought that was pretty interesting.
I will say, well, I guess I'll tell you this since you're on Wii U. Switch players that have horses on their Breath of the Wild save file, they can transfer their horses to Tears of the Kingdom.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Wii users are just out of luck.
It's okay because we still win in the end because that game validates this. There's a lot of games that validate the system, like Wonderful 101, one of the best games ever made. But that's my own personal opinion. Nobody else would probably agree with that. Top 3. But that's I think I probably will get Breath of the Wild for Switch though, just because of the cartridge. That's a whole nother topic of discussion. But yeah, playing it on Wii U just feels good. I don't know. There's just something about it. It feels good. Doesn't feel like I'm missing anything by playing it on Wii U versus Switch.
I don't think there is anything different. Maybe load times. is a little better on Wii U, but I think it is pretty much identical. I think you can get the Nintendo Switch shirt on Wii U. Don't know how.
Yeah. There's actually what's it called? World of Long Plays. I think they've been streaming the game, and I saw they had that in their inventory, and I was like, interesting. How do you get that? But I'm not too concerned with that. One thing I thought was interesting, before we close, I guess, the little Xenoblade Chronicles 2 subquest. I didn't really follow that, but I was like, that was mad random. I remember I was just in the field and I saw that. I was like, when they do a collaboration, well, obviously again, Monolith Soft is working on the game, but like, you telling me I can get Rex's equipment in game? Kind of cool. I wish they did more of those. Oh, that reminds me actually. So before we wrap up, because it's been 2 hours, the DLC. Obviously I didn't buy it on Wii U. What does the DLC encompass?
I will really recommend the second DLC because of how crazy it is, or the I guess the big ending.
Big ending.
I don't really remember what happened in the first DLC.
So is it canon story stuff?
It's related to the story, but it's definitely completely optional. I don't think it doesn't matter whether you do it or whether it ties in or not. I don't think it does actually.
So it's more fun content rather than story content.
I mean, it has story content and it's fun content, but it doesn't. I don't feel like you're missing anything from the main story of the game, from the base game. Gotcha. But it definitely adds on to it, and it's a nice ending. I don't want to spoil it because I really liked it.
Okay. So it's something I need to experience. Like I said, I'll probably get it on Switch. So I mean, I could just get it there. I wish they actually have a version of Breath of the Wild that has the DLC
if you get
on
it on Switch, and you will have to beat the game first to do the DLC.
I have to play everything all over again.
Yeah, that's why. Are DLC still available on the Wii U?
No. The store is closed. Like, it's closed.
Oh, so you can't get it anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
It's a done deal.
Oh, that's man. Because the second DLC does take place after
the main campaign.
Well, not the ending, but it takes place after much of the game.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean,
you
still play it.
If at most, I could just watch it.
Yeah, I guess.
Watch it if I really don't want to experience it. Again, I'll probably experience it. I mean, I wouldn't just buy this game again just to not play it. I'd probably play it on Switch, but just, obviously I'd have the knowledge of what to do after I've played it on Wii U. So.
I don't know if I'd say it's worth playing the whole game again, but it's really good. Well, I think it's really good. Or the whole gimmick of it.
Well, I have thought about getting more into it because, well, I may not want to play that whole game all over again. Sort of like you, I've been thinking about trying out Age of Calamity next just to see. I actually was gonna see if you wanted to go in on a deal with me because GameStop had some sort of deal where you could buy a game, get one free, yada yada yada. And I was like, if that game was a part of the deal, I was just gonna be like, hey, you want to get the game? You just give me half of the cost of the one game. You just get that one, I get the other one.
Yep.
But maybe next time. It wasn't a part of the deal, so I was like, oh well. But yeah, I think that's really our discussion on Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Play it, buy it, do it. It's fun. If you still have a Wii U and you still play it, like, it's actually inexpensive, which I think is pretty cool. It should still be inexpensive. Like, it was one of the few games I believe that didn't really go up in price after the store closure because, I mean, you could just get it on Switch. So. And I imagine it's one of the more popular titles to be emulated for Wii U if you're emulating Wii U. So, like, there's a million different ways to play the Wii U version. But I'm enjoying my time, and I'm going to play some more after we get off. So, yeah, that was the Zelda edition of the Ichi Niche podcast. I don't really have a good closer because I'm gonna give Aniplex a break this month. Aonuma is the GOAT. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's pretty fair.
That's fair to say. Is there anybody else that I need to give a GOAT shout out to for this game? Monolith Soft, you are the GOAT. Nintendo EAD, you are the GOAT. Did Nintendo EAD work, Zelda? Let me not give staff studios that worked on Breath of the Wild. Nintendo EPD, not EAD. EPD. Who else worked on this game?
Shout out to Monika Kataoka. She's the music composer for both games.
You are the GOAT. I went and found this article and immediately see the thing where they basically scrapped stuff for the Wii U version. Oh well. Anyways, Aonuma and staff, you are the GOAT. Until next time, later.